Kylie Jenner is slammed with a civil lawsuit from an ex-employee. Her former housekeeper has accused the cosmetics mogul of racial and religious discrimination, alleging Kylie's team said, quote, "Catholics are horrible people," and that a supervisor allegedly threw hangers at the employee's feet while verbally assaulting her. This is Scandal, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Gillespie. Reality TV star Kylie Jenner finds herself in some hot water as a former housekeeper files a scathing lawsuit against her. And there's a laundry list of allegations against Kylie and her company here, including racial discrimination and harassment, religion discrimination, disability discrimination, and retaliation. A new lawsuit alleges Kylie's team snapped their fingers at this employee, demanding work be completed, and they, quote, belittled and humiliated her based on race, national origin, and religion. On top of that, Kylie is accused of failure to pay, including minimum wage and overtime compensation. The lawsuit also alleges Kylie's team forced her former employee to work through lunch or meal times and through breaks too. Today's scandal takes us to Hidden Hills, California. It's a luxurious gated community in western Los Angeles, and it's home to Kylie Jenner. And by home, I mean it's where one of Kylie's many homes is located, but it's the main location of some of the allegations against her. Now, these allegations have been brought forth by a woman named Angelica Hernandez Vasquez. That's Kylie's former housekeeper. And according to a civil lawsuit that Angelica's team filed on April 17th, Angelica started work for Kylie's team on September 10th, 2024. Now, Angelica was hired on as a housekeeper and spent about a week at Kylie's Beverly Hills residence before being moved over to the Hidden Hills home on September 17th, 2024. And that's where the problems allegedly began. According to the lawsuit, from her first day at the Hidden Hills residence, plaintiff, meaning Angelica, was treated with hostility and exclusion. Throughout the lawsuit, Angelica refers to a few of Kylie's main employees who worked in a supervisory capacity. Their last names are not listed, but their first names are. There's Patsy, who was the head housekeeper, and Elsie, who worked as another supervisor. Throughout her employment, plaintiff was subjected to severe and pervasive harassment by defendants' agents, including Patsy and Elsie. According to her lawsuit, Angelica was routinely assigned the most difficult and undesirable tasks at the home, excluded from the housekeeping team, subjected to intimidation and demeaning treatment, and publicly belittled and humiliated due to her race, national origin, and religion. Now, Angelica is a Salvadorian woman and a practicing Catholic. During her time working for Kylie, she said she was the only Salvadorian employee, and according to Angelica, this was used against her. Defendants' agents made statements including but not limited to "Catholics are horrible people" directed at plaintiff, remarks implying that workers of similar background had been deported, and statements emphasizing their own U.S. citizenship while mocking or intimidating plaintiff regarding immigration status. On top of all of this, supervisors also allegedly demanded to see Angelica's phone on multiple occasions, accusing her of bad-mouthing them and then berating her even when she followed instructions. Angelica says this was all intended to demean, intimidate, or assert power over her. On multiple occasions, Angelica says she went to supervisors to report this alleged harassment, but instead of making any changes, Elsie and Patsy just forced her to do their work and then told her to just leave if she didn't like the way she was being treated. Things all came to a head after Thanksgiving 2024, and this is when a meeting was reportedly held. Angelica says she raised the alleged issues again here, but rather than addressing any of her issues, Patsy and Elsie just mocked her. No action was taken to solve the problem, and Angelica says she later found out that she had been recorded during that meeting without her consent. After the meeting, the retaliation allegedly just continued. Angelica says her workload increased. That is when she was scheduled at all. She alleges at times her hours were reduced, so she was forced to work less. And then things allegedly got even worse. When plaintiff complained again, things got violent for her. On or about March 29th, 2025, a supervisor threw hangers at plaintiff's feet while reprimanding her. Angelica also alleges there were issues with her pay. She says there was failure to pay all wages earned, late and missing pay for extended periods, failure to pay overtime, failure to provide meal and rest periods, failure to provide accurate wage statements, and failure to reimburse business expenses. Due to all of this, Angelica says she developed stress, anxiety, symptoms kind of consistent with post-traumatic stress disorder. And because of all of this, she took medical leave in July of 2025. Upon her return, the hostile conditions continued. On August 4th of 2025, Angelica resigned from her position, saying she felt she had no other choice. But when she resigned, she says the defendants failed to respond at all. In all, Angelica says this entire ordeal led to emotional distress, anxiety, PTSD symptoms, and loss of wages. Among the defendants in the lawsuit, she lists Kylie Jenner as both the corporation and individual, TriStar Services, La Maison Family Services, and 25 Jane and John Does. In the lawsuit, Angelica cites 25 different allegations, among them national origin discrimination and harassment, race discrimination and harassment, religion discrimination and harassment, whistleblower retaliation, failure to pay, wrongful termination, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Angelica says she's eligible for both punitive and compensatory damages, but doesn't list a dollar amount. But she does make one major demand: for a jury trial. Her lawsuit reads, "Plaintiff hereby demands a jury trial for the causes of action set forth herein." All right, she demands a jury trial, but will that actually happen? I mean, we've seen celebrities in court before, but really, what are the odds of that happening again? And does this case hold any water? Let's bring on today's expert guest to ask that question and many more. It's trial attorney Ron Zambrano. Thank you for coming on with us today, Ron. And okay, my first question for you, what are your initial thoughts? Do you think that this lawsuit holds up?
It's got a lot of causes of action, over 20. That was my first thought. I just kept going down this list, and from I guess the parlance we would use is, you throw spaghetti against the wall and see what it sticks. It's not really my style. Some people have other styles. I would say half of these claims will be chiseled away at or chipped away at somehow, either early or later. It's unwieldy. It's too unwieldy. And also, which I think is something you'll ask me about, is Miss Jenner's individual liability, because her name is there twice, right? One is a corporation, and another as an individual, and I don't see where she as an individual is alleged to have done anything wrong. So that's probably something else that we whittle away. It's not a massive lawsuit in the sense of, like, it's not really heavy in the sense of facts. The facts, I mean, it's terrible, right? If it's true, it's really not a good work environment. But it's just so many claims, and that's why it's 30-something pages.
Yeah, as I was going through, because they have the first page where it lists all of the allegations, it trickles on to the second page as the allegations continue. And I was like, oh, wow, okay. So there's really a lot going on here, too. But on the first page, let's talk about this. You mentioned it. It lists the defendants here. It says Kylie Jenner, an individual, and then Kylie Jenner, a corporation. So I open this lawsuit and I'm thinking, oh my God, what did Kylie Jenner do? And I keep reading, turning the pages. It's like in The Shining, where it's like all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy over and over. I just keep saying, and then I'm like, wait, there are no allegations against Kylie herself. It's all at the hands of her housekeepers or her employees who allegedly were, racially discriminatory and things like that. But Kylie herself, why would she be listed if she isn't even really involved in the lawsuit?
It could be one of two things. One, it's intentionally done there to get the news media as it has, although you didn't need to, because she was named as a corporation, still Kylie Jenner Inc. Or they just forgot to take her name out individually. And the reason I think it's probably the latter is that the first thing the attorney that's going to represent Miss Jenner is going to do is probably going to be, your normal offices that represent celebrities in the LA area. Marty Singer comes to mind. They'll attack this complaint in what's called a demur, saying there's no facts against Kylie as an individual, and therefore she should not be a defendant. And as it's written right now, I think that would be granted. Not that she wouldn't be stressed afterwards anyway. Her corporation's still involved, but it would be a partial win, and the judge would be like, why is she named as an individual without any facts attached to her as an individual?
That's kind of what I was thinking as I was going through this, because they also make mention of Kylie having multiple homes. So she obviously is traveling around the world. I know that she has a lot of hands in different businesses. I'm wondering if maybe this happened completely under her nose and she's like, wait a minute, I didn't even know that this happened at all. Why am I being kind of drug into all of this? So then on the counter side, if I'm Kylie's defense team, I'm wondering if you would say something like, okay, this woman, the plaintiff here who's bringing on this lawsuit, she clearly knows that Kylie Jenner is a millionaire. She at one time was listed the world's youngest billionaire. You know, she's got a lot of money in the bank. Maybe she's just coming after Kylie for all of that money. Is that something that Kylie's team would be thinking about?
Yeah, I think from Miss Jenner's perspective, from a narrative perspective, that would be what she should be doing, right? Like, this case is frivolous. You know, I'm named in here, and there's no facts, you know, attached to what I did as an individual. This is just a money grab, and that's typically what all celebrity defendants do. That it's typically a money grab. Which I always caution against, because what I would do if I were to advise her is to go, I wasn't there, but if you were being treated this way outside my presence, that is not okay. And I will take steps to have everybody be treated with dignity. It wasn't me, because you didn't allege anything against me, because I believe in people being treated with dignity no matter what station in life they are. But if there were people behind my back, you know, using my authority to treat you that way, that's not okay. That's what I would do. You know, that's what I would advise her to do. But they will probably come back really, really hard against this particular plaintiff, saying it's a money grab and nothing's wrong and everything's fine, and you know, we don't need to change, which I don't think is a good narrative. But you know, what do I know?
I mean, it is tricky, right? Because the allegations here are kind of severe. One of the allegations is that someone was throwing hangers at her, you know, physically kind of assaulting her in a way. Another one of the allegations is her saying something to the effect of, you know, Catholics are terrible people, or, oh, Salvadorian women, oh, you're the only one. You know, really kind of negative things about this woman, her beliefs, who she is, her physical body, if things are being thrown at her. That is all terrible. But again, I don't know if Kylie is necessarily liable for all of this. We talked about the money grab part of it, but what was interesting to me is that I didn't see a dollar amount. Sometimes when I go through and I read these civil cases, especially in the case of P. Diddy, there were so many civil lawsuits that came out, and people would request, I mean, crazy amounts of money. I think that I'm owed X amount in damages, but there was no number here that I saw in this lawsuit. Is that kind of out of the ordinary, or what are your thoughts on that?
So it depends on the jurisdiction. In California, there's no requirement that you have to put an actual number down for purposes of filing in state court. So as long as you hit other factual and legal boxes, you know, if you check those off, you're fine. But with regards to a number, it doesn't need to be in there. I mean, I don't do it because things are flowing, right? Like, a great case can turn into a bad case, and then, you know, there's egg on your face that you asked for $5 million or whatever. Or like a case you didn't think was that good, and you're like, I only want $100,000, and then in the middle of it, you realize this thing you never knew about, and it blows up. You know, you don't want to be committed this early, because really they don't know that much. In every employment case, the employer knows more than everyone, right? Like, they have control of the employees. So here, Miss Jenner has control of her own household, her current employees. She will be able to do an investigation, or her representatives, and really find out what happened, and, you know, what do the documents say, you know, emails or text messages, whatever, what they say. The plaintiff only has what she left with. Like, she really doesn't know, or her attorneys don't know that much. They just have to take her word for it. So the employer here, Miss Jenner, is already in a better position as far as like what to do strategically. So and with that, the plaintiff's attorneys are always like, well, you know, let's just hedge our bets. Let's not go too crazy with a number. Instead, what they did is they filed, you know, 20 plus claims, which, you know, personally I think is an over. I mean, it's like every single protected thing that can happen to this lady happened, which can undermine your credibility from the get-go. Right, like that's the other side, right? Like, instead of going like these 3 things happened and those 3 pieces of my rights happened, now it's like, well, every single right possible happened to me, and I think it dilutes the importance of things that shouldn't be talked about, like throwing hangers to employees is something probably we should not do.
Yeah, you're right. As we were going through the allegations, some of them make sense. You know, the racial or religious discrimination, that makes sense to me because she included a quote talking about her being Catholic, kind of a negative thing. But one of the other allegations she has listed is whistleblower retaliation. And I was like, wait, where was that even involved. I mean, to your point, I do tend to agree that maybe they had a lot of allegations here. They go on for 2 pages. There's kind of a lot going on here, but also maybe she kind of wants to cover all of her bases and make sure that she can get something out of this. And I guess that's my next question too. When I cover mostly criminal side of things. So usually, you know, we have the burden of proof on the prosecution. What does it mean for the civil side of things? Because as you were mentioning, Kylie, the defendant here, the employer knows more than the plaintiff who filed this. So she kind of has a leg up in a way. How does it shake out in terms of court, the burden of proof, all of that? What are the differences?
That's a great question, and something we in trial with juries have to remind them, like, this is not a criminal trial. Because it gets a lot of TV, beyond a reasonable doubt. Like, that's not what we're dealing with in civil. And in civil, what we're dealing with, it's flipped on its head. So the plaintiff has the burden, right? So here, the plaintiff has the burden. And the burden is not beyond a reasonable doubt. The burden is what we call preponderance of the evidence. And for those of us that have ever been in trial or do trials, it's really just like, the balances of justice. It's just slightly, like 51%, and you've hit that burden. So it's a fairly easy burden for the plaintiff, as long as she has the facts to give the jury to help her, right? So I can tell you right now, it's not a good idea to ask the jury to decide on over 20 claims. The jury's going to be like, this is too overwhelming. I've stopped paying attention, right? This is too much. This will be whittled down. For those things, like you've said, the retaliation whistleblower, I didn't really see that in the actual underlying story. So this is something else that Kylie's attorneys are going to attack. They're going to be like, there's no facts. Why are we, from the beginning, there's no facts. That case should be, that claim should be gone. And it's not going to be the only claim that's going to be attacked. And I think the judge will be like, yeah, why is this here? I don't see anything here.
Yeah, I don't know. And, as we're going through and talking about the civil side of things, my mind is rewiring and going back to the days of Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard, because this might have been the biggest trial since OJ, and it wasn't criminal. It was civil. So I'm going back and trying to remember everything from my brain there. And one of the things that was mentioned here in this lawsuit is the plaintiff, Angelica, alleges that she is qualified, or she deserves rather, both punitive and compensatory damages. And I remember learning this during Diddy, and it has completely escaped my brain completely. So can you explain the difference between those two for me?
Of course. Yeah, of course. So compensatory damages is where the plaintiff is asking the jury, can you award money to make me whole from either a perspective of the emotional distress I went through, or the money that I've lost because I was here, she was forced to quit, right? I was forced to quit. I haven't learned money since sometime in 2025, and do the math monthly, and please give that to me. That compensates me for my loss. The non-economic damages, the emotional distress, which is what people most think about, right? Human harm, what I went through. What is the value of being there, subjected to a hanger being thrown at me? What is the value of that? Well, there's no set value. We just kind of have to talk about it, and you the jury, talk about it. Whatever the jury decides it's worth to go through and compensate for that harm, for that embarrassment, let's assume it's true. That's not a very nice feeling, and oh my God, how embarrassing and dehumanizing is that? Just for argument's sake, that money is compensatory to make the plaintiff whole, right? As if to remedy the harm, because we can't. And there's no more eye for an eye where we're like, okay, put this lady in front of a wall, we'll throw a hanger at her, and now everything's fine. We don't do that. It's just money that could compensate the plaintiff. So that's compensatory damages. Punitive damages has to do with punishing the defendant for conduct that the jury finds, and now I'm going to make it more confusing, at a clear and convincing standard, which is slightly higher than preponderance of the evidence, that the employer, so Kylie Jenner Inc., whoever those people are, because it's not just her, right? She is a corporation. There's people that run her household, not just her, acted with malice, right? Maliciousness, fraud, oppression of her rights, of the plaintiff's rights. So if the jury decides, yeah, we do find that the employer at a high level were really trying to oppress her rights, we should punish the corporation for even doing that. So we've already made her whole. This is the jury. We made her whole with compensatory damages. Now we want to teach a lesson to the employer, and that's punitive damages. That's punishing money. That's the difference.
Okay, I see how the two kind of break down there. And it is confusing. I mean, I think I even misspoke just a second ago when I said Diddy when I was talking about Johnny Depp. There's so many different things that are going on here that if this does go to a jury trial, I mean, you did a great explanation there of kind of explaining the differences, but I know that jurors, it's a really important job that they have to consider something like that. They're really going to have to pay attention, focus, keep all of the evidence in mind when they would go to decide something like this. It's kind of complicated. And I do wonder, the plaintiff specifically said in her lawsuit she demands a jury trial. But based on what you and I have said, I don't know that Kylie necessarily is worthy of being a defendant here. I don't know that there was any proof really showing Kylie Jenner did XYZ allegations against her herself. So I guess this is kind of a two-pronged question. Do you think that this will be thrown out? Do you think that Kylie's team will successfully kind of throw it out and not have her listed as a defendant anymore, or do you think this is going to go to a jury trial?
So your question requires like two ways of answering it, or two ways to approach it. So
Okay.
they're absolutely going to, the defense is absolutely going to file what I've previously described as a demur. It's an attack on the actual complaint, saying either certain claims that are listed don't have facts to support them, or the facts that are supposedly there aren't enough. The glaring one is the one against Miss Jenner as an individual, right? That's the glaring one. You've identified it, I've identified it. The judge is going to give the plaintiff one chance to fix it, right? Because there's this overwhelming public policy that everybody should have an ability to have a chance to have their grievances heard on the merits, right? Not just on technical. It could be just like, oh my God, we forgot. And there's this whole terrible thing. But you can't lie, right? You can't just make it up just to keep her in. I don't know if it's worth it. That's a different discussion. Yeah. So it'll be, I think, personally what I think reading this is that a lot of this complaint will be, I'll take that back. Right now, a good chunk of it, let's say like 30% of it, 40% of it will be just whittled down through this process I'm describing, this demurrer process. I think after discovery, where everybody gets deposed, they file what's called a motion for summary judgment, and there's additional claims because there's just too many. There's just too many. And the judge is going to lean towards getting some of these things dismissed. There's just too many. I think when I read just the story, what I saw was the harassment based on religion and the harassment based on national origin, and also the emotional distress claim when you have hangers thrown at you, right? The problem with those is that the people that did those things are not named individual defendants. And the reason they're not named individual defendants from a technical standpoint is because they don't have $1 billion, right? Or insurance. That's why not there. So the judge, these questions the judge is going to be like asking, right? Like, wait a minute, the people who actually did the most egregious things, the egregious comments and the egregious throwing of hangers are not individual defendants. Those are the people that should be in this lawsuit individually. And that is, I think the attorneys have to grapple with that. To answer the second part of your question, there's always, I don't think Miss Jenner as an individual will continue to be an individual defendant at trial. I think something will survive to trial. I think she'll be a witness if she had something to do with how her household was run. But I don't know, right? It could be that there's someone below her that runs everything, and Miss Jenner will be deposed and she's like, I don't know anything. Like, you have to talk to my assistant or my executive, whatever. It could be that. And then Kylie will never be at trial. Like, that's a possibility, but we don't know. You know who does know? Kylie and her attorneys know right now.
Right, and they're the ones that I'm going to call after this. No, just kidding. We reached
like,
out.
Ron
We
said
actually
this.
we haven't heard a comment yet from Kylie's team. But, I mean, just to kind of put a bow on it and wrap it up, these allegations are really severe. No one should feel, be made to feel negative because of their status or their religion or their origin, or physically have hangers thrown at them. But at the same time, as you and I have pointed out, I don't know how much Kylie Jenner herself as an individual had to do with this. I guess we're going to have to wait and see. Ron, thank you for coming on Scandal and breaking down this lawsuit with us.
Of course, anytime.
So far, we haven't heard from Kylie's team about any sort of response. We'll update you as soon as that comes down. And I guess that means that's where today's Scandal leaves us for now. If you like what you saw and you want more, or to connect with me on social media, you can find me on places like Instagram at Sierra Gillespie. Thanks for watching today's episode of Scandal. As always, I'm your host, Sierra Gillespie, and I'll see you next time.